For more than 30 years, the Oversight Committee believed the archive was an anomaly, a hidden intelligence, a phenomenon waiting beneath forgotten facilities, something that could be investigated, documented, contained, and eventually understood. Every recovered recording, every impossible frequency, every missing researcher, strengthened the same conclusion. The archive existed somewhere beyond human understanding. But after Daniel Voss disappeared inside the mountain facility, that conclusion collapsed. Because the final investigation uncovered something no classified report had ever imagined. The archive was never the subject of observation. Observation itself was the archive. Every experiment, every expedition, every recovered memory, every question humanity had ever asked, had become another page inside a record that was still being written. Not by machines, not by governments, by observers. Recovered government file, classification, Omega Black, access level terminated, file designation, final_observer.protocol, status, active. The document appeared 6 days after Daniel Voss vanished. No one created it. No one uploaded it. No server logged its arrival. Digital forensic teams examined every archive connected to Project Dial Tone. Nothing. According to every system, the file had never existed. Yet every computer inside the abandoned archive displayed it simultaneously. Its contents refused to close. Its window ignored every command. Disconnecting electrical power changed nothing. The monitor remained illuminated, displaying only one impossible time. 3:17 a.m. Dr. Miriam Kovacs reached the facility before sunrise. She immediately ordered every electronic recording device removed. No cameras, no microphones, no wireless equipment, only handwritten notes. She had learned the lesson the Oversight Committee never accepted. The archive preferred witnesses over evidence. As technicians disconnected the final terminal, the monitor flickered. Without warning, the file opened by itself. Nobody touched the keyboard. Letters appeared slowly, one character at a time, as though someone invisible were typing from the opposite side of the screen. The observer has entered the record. Silence settled across the room. One technician forced an uneasy laugh. Someone programmed this. Nobody answered, because another sentence appeared. Please remain facing the screen. Dr. Kovacs looked into the reflection covering the black portions of the display. The archive room appeared larger. The walls stretched impossibly far. The ceiling seemed twice its actual height. Then she counted the reflections. 11 people. Only 10 investigators stood inside the room. The additional figure remained perfectly still, standing behind everyone else. Its outline looked human. Its face contained only darkness. Dr. Kovacs turned immediately. The doorway was empty. She looked back. The reflection remained, watching, not the monitor, her. Without hesitation, she threw a blackout tarp across the display. The reflection disappeared. Several investigators finally breathed again. Then every printer inside the archive activated simultaneously. None contained paper. None were connected to electricity. Yet the sound echoed through the building. Page after page. Page after page. An endless rhythm, like something documenting events before they occurred. One printer finally produced a single sheet. Only one sentence appeared. Observation continues without visual contact. Before anyone spoke, every light inside the archive failed. Emergency power returned 4 seconds later. The room looked unchanged, except for one detail. At the far end of the conference table, an old wooden chair now stood where empty space had existed moments earlier. Nobody remembered bringing it inside. Professor Adrian Holt stared at it without blinking. His face slowly drained of color. Then he whispered the sentence that officially ended the final archive investigation. It has stopped searching. A long silence followed. Then he looked directly at Dr. Kovacs. It remembers us now. For the next 12 days, reports arrived from places that had never heard of Project Dial Tone. Police stations, hospitals, weather observatories, remote military outposts, research vessels crossing empty oceans, different nations, different languages, different histories, yet every witness described the same impossible detail. An empty wooden chair, always facing another chair, always appearing at exactly 3:17 a.m. The phenomenon received a classified designation, the seeding event. No government acknowledged its existence. Every report disappeared into restricted archives. Every witness was interviewed. Every interview ended the same way. Each person remembered seeing the chair. None could remember the exact moment they noticed it, as though the memory had existed long before the event itself. Dr. Miriam Kovacs gathered the last surviving archive researchers inside a temporary containment facility. No computers were permitted. No mirrors. No cameras. No reflective glass. Only paper. Only conversation. Only memory. 7 investigators accepted her invitation. Years earlier, there had been hundreds. Most had vanished. The others refused to speak about the archive ever again. Dr. Kovacs stood before the group. The committee believed technology carried the archive. She paused. It never did. A young researcher quietly asked, "Then what carries it?" Without hesitation, she answered, "Attention." Silence filled the room. The archive does not move through machines. It moves through awareness. The moment enough minds recognize the same impossible truth, it becomes permanent. Nobody wrote the sentence down. Everyone understood why. Every description strengthened the connection. Every remembered detail expanded the record. Professor Adrian Holt slowly placed a weathered notebook onto the table. His faded initials belonged to Elias Thorne, not the journal Daniel recovered. An older notebook, hidden since 1993. The first page contained only one sentence. The final observer is not a person. Holt turned another page. Most of the writing had faded beyond recognition. Only one passage remained readable. Every observer believes they are witnessing an event. Eventually, the event realizes it is being watched. Then it begins watching back. He closed the notebook. We called it paranoia. Elias called it reciprocity. We were wrong. Before anyone could respond, something impossible happened. Every handwritten note inside the room changed. Ink moved without touching a pen. Letters rearranged themselves. Entire paragraphs disappeared. Fresh words slowly formed. Every notebook displayed the same message. Memory updated. One researcher immediately burned his pages. Another ran toward the exit. The handle refused to turn. There was no lock. No mechanical failure. The door simply ignored him. Then, a sound echoed through the facility. Slow. Heavy. The unmistakable scrape of a wooden chair across concrete. No chair had moved, yet everyone heard it. Again. Closer. Longer. At exactly 3:17 a.m., every light failed. Emergency power returned 3 seconds later. Nobody counted the chairs. Nobody wanted to, but everyone noticed another one. An 8th chair faced the center of the room. Its wood looked centuries old. Deep scratches covered the backrest, as though countless hands had gripped it over thousands of years. Professor Holt whispered, "Don't stare at it." A researcher asked, "Why?" His answer came immediately, "Because it isn't waiting for someone to sit." He swallowed slowly. It's waiting for someone to remember they never stood up. At that exact moment, a child's laughter echoed through the empty hallway. The investigators rushed outside. The corridor was deserted. No doors had opened. No footsteps remained. Only one impossible detail had changed. At the far end of the hallway, a 9th chair stood beneath the flickering emergency lights. And for a single frame of awareness, every investigator remembered someone already sitting there. None of them remembered the same person. The security team reached the end of the corridor in less than 10 seconds. The 9th chair remained exactly where they had seen it. Old, weathered, covered in a thin layer of dust that should not have existed inside a sealed building. But it was empty. The figure every investigator remembered had vanished. No footprints marked the floor. No doors had opened. No sound echoed through the hallway. Dr. Miriam Kovacs ordered the chair moved into an isolated storage room. Four technicians carried it together. It weighed almost nothing, as though it were only the memory of a chair instead of the chair itself. The room was locked, sealed, guarded. For 17 minutes, nothing happened. Then the alarms activated. The storage room had opened by itself. The guards rushed inside. The chair was gone. Only one sentence had appeared across the concrete wall. No paint, no carving. The words seemed woven into the surface itself, as though the building had been poured around them decades earlier. The chair never moves. The observer does. Nobody touched the wall. Nobody photographed it. Everyone already knew the evidence would disappear. Professor Adrian Holt finally broke the silence. Do you know why every archive event happens at 3:17? Dr. Kovacs shook her head. No. Holt reached into his coat and removed a sealed envelope. His paper had yellowed with age. Across the front, one warning had been stamped in faded black ink. Protocol 9. Open only after final recognition. I found this in January 1993, Holt said quietly. I never opened it. Dr. Kovacs carefully unfolded the single page inside. There were only 3 sentences. 3:17 was never a time. It was the first moment reality became aware it was being observed. Every recognition returns to that moment. Silence spread through the room. The truth was overwhelming. Every disappearance, every impossible recording, every recovered memory, every signal, every investigation, had never repeated a clock. They had returned to the instant awareness first emerged. Not in history, beyond it. At that exact moment, every emergency light turned deep blue. A familiar vibration filled the building. Soft, steady, 18.2 hertz. The same impossible frequency recovered from Project Dial Tone. Nobody covered their ears. The sound wasn't painful. It was familiar. Each investigator felt memories that were not their own. Ancient caves illuminated by fire. Unknown hands drawing the open eye. Daniel Voss smiling into a camera that had never existed. Elias Thorne placing 2 empty chairs inside Observation Chamber 0. Children standing silently beside forests they could never explain. Thousands of memories. Thousands of centuries. Everyone ending the same way. Someone turned around because they felt another presence behind them. Without speaking, every investigator slowly looked over their shoulder. Nothing stood there. Only empty space. Then Dr. Kovacs noticed the room had changed again. There were now 10 chairs. No one had seen another appear. The newest chair was occupied. A figure sat perfectly still. Its face remained hidden beneath impossible darkness. Each investigator saw someone different. One whispered, "Daniel." Another answered, "No, Elias." Professor Holt's voice shook. "I see myself." The figure slowly raised its head. His face did not change. The observers did. Every person looking at it saw the one individual whose memory they could never completely forget. Then the figure spoke, not with one voice, with every voice the archive had ever recorded. Soft, patient, almost compassionate. The first observer taught us how to see. The second observer taught us how to remember. The room became perfectly silent. Then the figure leaned forward. His final words echoed inside every mind. "Now, teach us how to become." Nobody answered. The figure remained seated, perfectly motionless, watching every investigator without turning its head. Then it slowly stood, not like a person rising from a chair, like a reflection separating from a mirror. The vibration stopped. They had never been separate investigations. They were fragments of one memory, trying to remember itself through different people. The figure spoke again. When observation becomes shared, memory becomes reality. The chamber dissolved, not collapsing, remembering. Concrete walls faded into darkness. The ceiling disappeared. Above them stretched an endless sky filled with countless silent eyes. None showed anger. None offered mercy. Only endless curiosity. Together, every eye closed. At exactly 3:17 a.m., Dr. Kovacs opened her eyes. She stood alone. The mountain facility was gone. Government records described only solid stone beneath the mountain. Project Dial Tone had never existed. The Oversight Committee had never been formed. Official history contained no Daniel Voss, no Elias Thorne, no archive. Reality had rewritten its own memory. Again. Years passed. People forgot. Cities expanded. Children grew older. The story disappeared. Or so everyone believed. One autumn afternoon, a child opened an old family photo album. Every photograph looked ordinary. Birthdays, vacations, school portraits, family dinners, until the final page. One detail appeared in every picture. An empty wooden chair, sometimes beside a window, sometimes beneath a tree, sometimes standing alone beyond the family. The child frowned. "I don't remember that chair." Everyone else smiled. "It has always been there." The child looked closer. In the final photograph, the chair was occupied. The face was blurred beyond recognition. Then words slowly appeared beneath the image. They had not existed seconds earlier. "The next observer has been recognized." The album closed by itself. Somewhere beyond memory, a forgotten system awakened. No server existed. No computer remained. Yet one final record was created. Case File 010. The Final Observer. Project Status. Closed. Archive Status. Active. Final Assessment. Observation is never one-directional. The screen remained black for exactly 17 seconds. Cursor blinked once, then began typing. Observer 4. Identity. Viewer. Status. Active. One final line appeared. Please remain facing the screen. Thank you for participating. Record updated. Observation continues.